So your mind is like a soft, warm blanket wrapping itself around everything you see that comes within the purview of your vision. Whatever you hear, see, taste, feel, and you notice. Does anyone here meditate? Do you have your own meditation practice? You meditate?
Sometimes not active, like as far as practice, but I do occasionally.
Ah. Do you do formal practice meditation? Sitting?
Kind of changed. I guess I'm kind of learning, so I'll kind of have a guided type thing that I listen to, and it seems like some of them are different, so it's kind of changing. But
meditation? What is your practice?
I like to practice in the morning, and I'll just sit and connect with my body and watch my thoughts and kind of feel how I'm feeling in that moment. And I'll usually add some movement to like acknowledge my body. For me, it's all about connecting with my body and my thoughts and just paying attention to what comes up, I guess, in my mind. And then I'll set my intentions for the day. And that's kind of what I do. It's helpful to just know, you catch things when you sit with your thoughts, because they don't really stop, but when you watch them, you can kind of take control a little bit more.
Have we talked about interoceptive awareness? I can't recall that interoceptive awareness yet. Have we spoken about that? I speak of that often because that's what not just meditators, but if you are perceptive enough, you can recognize within yourself these internal experiences, whether it's sensation, feelings, or thought. And that is a practice of cultivating interoceptive awareness. And recognizing is one part. The other part is once you capture that, you can just softly and gently manipulate the situation within yourself, within your mind, that can allow for you to transform that experience into like equanimity, peace. So that's a very good practice, just sitting there and then looking within, noticing whatever arises, whether sensation, feelings, or thought. It's a great practice. There's so many levels though of practice there.
Sometimes it's like for me, when I first started meditating, I'd sit there and my brain would be going, I'm meditating, I'm relaxing. And I would notice that I was doing that. I wasn't actually doing it. I was just telling myself over and over again that that's what I was doing.
Yeah, it's tricky, yes, meditation. Because the nature of the mind is to critique. That's what it does, it thinks. It's difficult to try to impede that process. So in meditation, you're not trying to impede anything. You're just noticing that you're thinking. And then you may be inclined to direct your attention back onto your breath. And the breath is probably the most common, well-known object because it's accessible. It's right there. So focusing on your breath allows you to anchor, kind of ground yourself so that you can proceed within that space to refocus. So I'm bringing that up because conscious parenting requires that aspect. is associated with that parenting, that form of parenting, because you have to develop a perceptive awareness or perceptive intelligence or conscious intelligence to be able to catch yourself, regulate yourself. And that's what the essence of conscious parenting is while paying attention. You see what's going on inside you. So any form of meditation practice, I believe, is a good practice. Because most, if not all, forms of meditation practices starts with paying attention. And there are, I believe, some 1,800 known types of meditations in the world. And one could arguably say they fall under one of three categories. And most of us here in the West, we practice what's called one-pointed meditation or focused meditation. And we do so in order to attain calm. Right? But in Asia, they use meditation to cultivate insight. Here, calm. Breathe in, calm, breathe out, relax. Breathe in, calm, breathe out, relax, right? Oh, yes.
Mine usually coincides with like the culmination of a yoga practice in the morning. So Shavasana is where usually then I'll pause whatever I followed or just let the music run. But I think through that practice and then the more I've looked into it and the more that practice has become such a part of my daily life at this point. And I think we've talked about it too. I overlapped with you at another conscious parenting class and we were talking about wherever you were, even just walking meditations. So I'll take a moment in this space, and I think I had a alarm on my phone for a little while just to get into the rhythm of about how long was it between an hour and 15, just to try and start to get a feel for how much time, and then just whatever I was doing in that very moment, just pause. Notice what was going on around me. Notice how much tension I had in my body. Was I aware of what was actually going on around me, or was I so hyper-focused on something else I was missing? And just a couple of breaths that way. And then just, immediately you're moving on with your day. But I just felt like those moments of just kind of a touch point of coming back and saying, okay, am I carrying this kind of consciousness with me throughout the day, or is it just this thing I do once and then I just kind of go back into my normal mode, which is about 900 miles an hour. But even just like when we're out in the woods with the kids, noticing a breeze, noticing a ripple in the water, being that in the moment that I can just practice what my feet feel like in my shoes, am I barefoot on the concrete, just those couple of seconds of just paying attention, more of an active meditation practice than just a holding still and then calling that my enough for the day. So it's kind of evolved for me.
Yeah, that's hyper awareness there, noticing the stream, noticing the grass, noticing the breeze. That's fantastic.
It only lasts for about 25 seconds, and then I'm right back to the not paying attention to a lot of things. So I'm not, don't set the bar too high for me, Colin.
25 seconds, remarkable. Given that I read that on average we can only focus for 4 seconds. That's with effort and intention. Did you notice when you're sitting there meditating and your practice is to focus, your mind just wanders off? So 4 seconds is itself extraordinary. Does anyone here, and because this is also, I believe it is a strong and important practice in conscious parenting, does anyone here have a compassion meditation? You have. What is your practice, Mary?
Well, it's the practice of metta, M-E-T-T-A. It's loving kindness, That's what I've learned in just my journey through learning meditation. And it can look several ways, but it, kind of coming into a space of contemplating someone or something that you feel immense love for, that just comes easy, and just cultivating that, and moving into inviting perhaps someone that you're indifferent to, that maybe you can bring about their face in the image of your mind, maybe a clerk that you know at the store, or someone who works in your office building that you don't maybe know very well, but you can also offer them well wishes, the cultivation of loving kindness, and however form that looks for you. And then bringing to mind perhaps someone who it's a little more difficult to cultivate that loving kindness for, someone that challenges and teaches you, perhaps on a daily basis, patience and compassion. So, and then offering that same loving kindness and well wishes to that person as well. And then that just kind of rippling out. So picturing a drop going into water, the way that it ripples out, kind of moving your practice in that way to include perhaps all people in the town of Sheridan, expanding, to eventually all sentient beings. So, just what do we wish for this world to all people? And it's actually a very natural thing for us humans to be able to cultivate. I think it's a true essence of our nature, is this compassion. And not to forget ourselves. We're kind of the center of that ripple. And so offering and turning those wishes to ourselves, may I be happy, may I be loved, may I feel peace. And so that's kind of the practice.
That's great, Mary. That's the third form of practice Mary just mentioned is metta. The first one was focus. I mentioned the second was insight meditation, where they practice in the East, and the third form is metta. So compassion meditation. I really believe it is the one thing that can inoculate us against this empathy fatigue that we have in what we're seeing and what we see going on in the media, right versus left, up versus down, black versus white. A lot of that can certainly skew the way we see things. So all the more important, if you can practice some form of compassion meditation, spend the rest of your life doing so. Because we know compassion too is one of those traits, if you can call it a trait. I was told it's not a trait, but rather a movement, an action. But if it is at all considered a trait, that's one thing that you should and could cultivate, especially in the context of conscious parenting. Compassion is the doorway that leads into bigger and better things for you in terms of evolutionary. It is a form of intelligence too, compassion is. So consider that. You can talk to Mary about that. There are many numerous types of practices of compassion. Walking meditation can be an act of compassion, where you leave footprints of love and compassion for all sentient beings, in hopes that individuals or people will cross your path, and that is your way of transmitting your love and compassion to them. So it could be offering, wishing well. Yeah. Somebody who pulls in front of you in traffic, comes within an inch of your car, what do? Right?
They get where they're coming safe.
Did you just give them a bird? Oh, like a fist. Much better. Threaten them.
You say thank you, teacher.
Yeah. Once upon a time, back in the day, I was just like everyone else. What the hell is wrong with that person? Now you offer that person wellness. May that person be happy, healthy. May that person be loved. That's wishing. May that person is how we started. Is that how you started too?
Mm-hmm. May you be.
May you be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So consider that, please. Your children could remind you of that as well. They have natural empathy and compassion. We're going to talk a bit about empathy another time, or 3 different types of empathy, 3 different forms. Intellectual empathy or cognitive empathy. There's emotional empathy and then compassionate empathy. So if anything that you can cultivate for yourself through your practice, whatever that may be, it doesn't have to be meditation. Anyone pray? Does anyone, you pray. That's powerful. Ellen, you meditate and pray.
Yeah.
It's like double dose of yeah. That's great. Is there an aspect of compassion practice in your prayers?
No, this is kind of really good to hear. It's something that I don't necessarily practice.
Oh.
So, I mean, as far like, I don't know. I would like to think of myself as hopefully somewhat compassionate, but as far as what you're talking about, no, it's not necessarily centered around that.
Aaron, can I ask a question? Do you pray for other people while you're doing?
Yeah, I guess I do.
And I think that's where then we're saying, hey, we want to take this and we're gonna give it to this person. Hey, would you
I guess in that
like
context.
healing or strength or whatever?
Yeah.
I think that would probably be where ours. Maybe you don't wish them love or
Yeah.
wish them health, but if you've got somebody who's like, hey, pray for my sister who's,
Yeah.
I think you are channeling it that way because I do know you enough to know that you are compassionate.
Yeah.
We'll vouch for Aaron.
I'll remind you that you are.
Maybe. I guess I'm. Yeah, not connecting the dots.
Mixing
but
terms, I think,
yeah.
at this point, but
That's what
it's
you
the
do.
same concept.
That's a form of compassion, praying for others. It keeps you connected and humanity sustained. I think there's I'm just going to move on. There's a whole different thought behind that. Do you recognize this this slide here? You do? So I've talked about this already. I'm going to move on then. I think I kind of discussed this. I do recall conscious discipline for parents. The concept conscious discipline applies to parents. And when I think of that, I think of a lot of things when it comes to discipline as a parent. One, focus, staying focused with your children, paying attention, listening to your children, being present, presenting a kind of dignified repose, means calm, being there, noticing, being aware, displaying empathy, listening, recognizing. So, in terms of what is empathy, perspective taking, I could reiterate this over and over as you're listening to your kids. Not intellectual or cognitive empathy. And that kind of empathy as it is defined, is your capacity or ability to put yourself in other people's shoes. That is not enough. You're able to put yourself in your kids' shoes. You can recognize, for example, what they're experiencing. But then you have this urge or tendency or desire to want to instill your wisdom. That's when compassionate and emotional empathy ends. The moment you start to instill, you still maintain the cognitive empathy. Sociopaths have cognitive empathy, right? They can put themselves in your shoes. That's why they're so good at conning you, right? So they're able to know what you need, and you know what your kids need. So you're not sociopaths. I don't know you. Maybe you are. I don't know. Anyone in here a lawyer? Okay. Or police officer? Surgeon? Salesperson? Oh, okay. They're all good people. So listening with the type of empathy that can resonate compassion to you for your kids would take you and take the child farther, and it keeps you connected that way. Okay, so the moment, I'm going to repeat this, the moment that your child asks you a question and you may be inclined to instill your wisdom, that's where compassionate empathy ends. So then it becomes more about you in most cases. In some cases, maybe you might be inclined. The child may need that information to help navigate. But I would rather listen. Okay, just pure listen, right? So the parent's capacity to care for the child is a reflection of the child's feeling of lovability. The child's ability to love themselves, to adore themselves, to find themselves fondly, is dependent on your capacity to offer that to them. Because that's where the recognition comes from. The recognition of self and who I am and how I feel about myself starts off where? Reflected. What you offer them to begin with. Yes? So I'll read that again. The parent's capacity to care for the child is a reflection of a child's feeling of lovability. So if you can offer just that, pure compassion, love, security, they will embody that and they will know no other. Okay? When a child's do we recognize this? No. When a child's inner sense of worth is based on how she feels and not how the parent feels, she separates from needing to find a sense of worth outwardly, because she has established a clear sense of worth inwardly. The example I gave you, when my daughter came to me in her dress and asked me, as she was twirling around like a princess she is, "Am I beautiful, Daddy?" You recall how I responded?
Pattern. The patterns on her dress.
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't help but to notice is that a sequence or sequences on your dress? Yeah. And I can't help but to notice the color. Yeah, patterns, yeah, that's right. She's seeking from me, right? And I guess it's okay, but be careful. We talked about Carol Dweck.
You were right, Paul. That night we went home, and the whole thing, Paul's like, I think he was talking about Carol Dweck. I was like, yeah, but I don't think that was the one. Anyway,
It
he
dawned
won
on
the debate.
Fixed mindset,
I'll say it
right?
out loud, all right?
So you recognize fixed mindset? Yeah. The moment you reduce the child to an object, a description, they hold on to that, and that's how they define themselves. So I'm beautiful. The problem with that is, it's only when I'm in distress. So it would, the thinking would generalize itself. That's why we have to be very cautious in her study. If you want to research Carol Dweck, it's scary. And I went as far as to say that the results or consequences are pretty drastic. It's been measured to that equal to abuse itself, equivalent to abuse in terms of how they respond and how they're impacted by those type of comments. So be very careful. Be gentle. So you want your child to develop a sense of self and identity, or intrinsic sense of self-worth. I think it's okay to do what I do. It just helps expand awareness, to notice. Shafali, the mantle of perfection is used to validate the parent's sense of self. She really believes this. And so do I. The mantle of perfection is used to validate. That's all the more important reason, I think, anytime you're with your child and you're having thoughts and you're engaging with your child, to be mindful of what goes through your head, what goes through your mind. A difficult task indeed, because we want to save our kids a lot of times, and we want to teach them, we want to show them the way of the wise. Sometimes just kind of stepping back and listening is all the wisdom they need. And you're modeling listening. Have you ever had to ask your child to listen? Listen? Yeah. So, I think we all do. Hey, I'm talking to you. Yeah, those type of comments. Well, model that. Yeah, spend the next year or so, 12 months, say nothing to your kids. Just sit there, and as they're talking to you, say nothing. Don't soak that in, you know. Mine has not, but one of these days, I'm hoping she'll grow up, she'll mature, she'll find her way. She came to me not too long ago, about 6 months ago, and said, "Hey, Daddy, I noticed something. You never answer my questions." So I guess she's grown up and recognized that. You never answer my questions. I said, "What do you mean?" "See?" So she tried it in here. By the way, she came in here. She said, "Dad, I'm going to try what you did. I'm going to see if I can." She was going to engage with students here and keep quiet and try to mimic me. So I picked her up and she said, "Dad, I tried what you did." I said, "Which part?" "The questioning like that, you listening." I said, "Well, how did you do?" And she says, "It's hard." She couldn't, because Jasmine can talk. She couldn't. She says, I have to practice that." So it's a practice, yeah. Yeah, peace cannot be a declaration. It needs to be a practice. Thich Nhat Hanh, right? Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Zen monk. All right, parents create markers of a child's identity based on things projected. And much of those markers, a lot of those markers, tend to be artificial, superficial, okay, external. So they will identify with that. If grades are important to you, they will make it their own. And if they falter, they may lack the adversity or the adversity intelligence to overcome that. I'm thinking of that kid that I work with. She's 17 years old and she must make straight A's, nothing less. This is how she defines herself. And she's extraordinary. beyond her academic intelligence. And if the child does not meet the markers because there is not a sense of self, they struggle. And that's the importance, I think, providing like a space like this. I'm talking about Wildflower, where the child gets to develop his or her own identity without interference. Because much of our identity is borrowed. And it starts, and a significant portion of that are parents. Okay? So, keeping in mind, being mindful that we don't, we're going to, so I shouldn't say that. We will impose our will on our kids here and there, although we refer to it as parenting. Or we may refer to it as that. Be mindful of that, because that which you think is beneficial and important to them, whatever you're instilling, may not apply to them. Okay? They are their own entities. They have their own self. By 5 months, they already know they exist. I did a test with Jasmine when she was an infant. At 5 months, I put a marker, magic marker, put a marker right here on her forehead, put her in front of a mirror. She just slaps the mirror. At 6 months, she did the same thing. At 7 months, she just slaps the mirror. At 8 months, she did this. She found herself. So about in between their 5 to 8 months, they have their own identity. Then at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to stop imposing. From that point forth, I was like, no more dadu wisdom. Okay? Your wisdom is yours and yours alone. You can talk to yourself, look in the mirror, and then you can impress yourself. All right, here we go. I just think about my own thoughts. That's good. I wish I could share this with Jasmine, but I don't. She'll find her way. Children will define themselves early on. As early as 5 months. They know they exist, right? And then they do all kinds of things, manipulating the world, cutting your tree or whatever, or drawing on the wall. Yeah, with a magic permanent marker, right? I don't know, kicking the dog or whatever, pulling the cat's tail. That's awesome. Allow them to do that, please. They're done writing on the wall, put a frame around it. Conscious parenting, right? You're just going with the flow. They'll figure it out that you can't write on the wall when they go to school. Teachers will set them straight. Parenting matters. Your parenting does matter. That's what conscious parenting is about, right? It's about you as a parent and what you can offer and what you do has an impact and influence. They love you. That's your leverage, right? They already love you. They will listen to you. Now, watch your tone, right? Mindful tone. If there's any tension or power that seeps, you're going to set them up. Wait till they're 12 and 13. By that time, they're just going to be what you are, right? They're going to fight you like you fight them. So just be mindful of your tone. Be gentle. I mean, you can use that kind of language. Gentle, calm, gentle, easy. Good boy. Pathogenic guilt. I really want to talk about this thing because a lot of what influences our parenting has to do with this thing called pathogenic guilt. Also referred as inequity guilt or survivor's guilt. If you have lived in a not so stellar or grew up in a not so stellar or ideal family situation, it may not have been an ACE, ACE, adverse childhood experience, but your parents may have not been totally agreeable, and you have been punished or disciplined in a way that breeded in you shame or guilt. That's what you carry, and that's what you're going to carry. And then what happens is that follows you into your adulthood, and you're finding yourself either doing the exact same thing your parents are doing, or you refuse to do. You overcompensate by not doing what your parents are doing, and become neglectful in other ways. So be mindful of this. We all, in some ways, carry this pathogenic guilt into our parenting. It seeps into our parenting. We feel, for example, obligated to save our children. I know I hear sometimes parents say, I have to protect. You're trying to save your kid from suffering. If anything, we as human beings are defined by, it is suffering, right? We all suffer. Have you never ever suffered a death, a sickness, in relationships? We all suffer, right? So empathy-based guilt that becomes pathogenic when based on false belief of one's own happiness or success. I have a gentleman, he's in his 30s. His mother is quite abusive. He would show me text, and she's calling him ass, and it's just horrible things, making him feel guilty. And he feels obligated to go over every weekend to make sure she's okay. But each time he does, for that Friday, Saturday, he gets a mouthful from her of all kinds of nastiness. But he feels obligated because after all, he justifies it as my mom took care of me when I was little, so it's my turn. And then it will make me a better person. If I can take care. So he's trying to justify that to alleviate his guilt, the guilt that was imposed on him, actually. So be careful. Also be careful of pathological altruism. Sometimes what you do for your child, you may consider a good thing, a giving thing, or positive or compassionate thing, may not be. So you want to step back and kind of look at that action, and scrutinize that, investigate that, but be careful about criticizing yourself. Be gentle. Parenting is hard enough as it is, but be gentle. If you're going to and want your child to be gentle, you can start with yourself by treating yourself gently. Okay. Action and reaction based on an incomplete access to our inability to process information necessary to prudent decision. So what does basically mean? If you're carrying pathogenic guilt, I think we all carry some form of guilt or shame that was passed on to us. Sometimes that interferes with your judgment, not realizing. So with this gentleman, this client of mine, he rationalizes and justifies being abused, and he's okay with that, but yet he comes to me and sits in the office, and that's his main complaint. So what he's doing is he's trying to displace it onto me, trying to get rid of it. Omnipotent responsibility guilt. I think all parents experience this. It is this belief that you're all powerful in a way because you are a parent, that you have the power to instill happiness in your child. And because it is your responsibility to do so as well, you impose yourself onto your child. You have to be cautious with this one here, because you may be unintentionally instilling, passing on whatever past pain or history to the child. So that sense of responsibility to make your child happy is almost necessary in a way. If my child does not attain this happiness, it's my fault. Hence, that's where the guilt comes in. So there are concepts to this. It just shocks me, when I think about these things. When I first learned about parenting, I was like, I don't need a kid. I'm screwed up. I got omnipotent responsibility guilt going on, I have pathogenic guilt going on, I have ghost in the nursery going on. Got lots of going on. But of course, as long as we're mindful of these things, we just have to be very, very careful about what we're doing. I'm kind of pass on this because there's so many PowerPoints here and slides that there are other things we can discuss. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life and you will call it fate. Darn Carl Jung. He's the one that said this. He was a psychoanalyst. Yeah, so all the more important. That's why I like conscious parenting. It makes you reflect on things. That has little to do with what's wrong with your child. It has a lot to do with what's going on within me as I'm parenting. And by this way, there's nothing wrong with your child. I think I've said before, there's no such thing as a bad kid. I've never met one in 18 years I've done therapy. I've met kids who are impulsive or emotionally dysregulated or struggle with behavioral discontrol. But no such thing as a bad kid. Okay? We believe that children exist unconsciously. Come on now. How many times have your kids stopped you and say, look at that bird, daddy, or mommy, look at the clouds. You see the rainbow? That big rainbow over your head you didn't see? You're like, oh, right? They are conscious. Kids are conscious. I don't know who it was, but before we started, someone came in. There was two of the kids, and they were tiptoeing so quietly. I didn't tell them to tiptoe. They're conscious. They know. Environmentally conscious and aware of what's going on in this moment as they enter that room. Just watch them. All you have to do is watch them, and then we can learn. Yeah. We attempt to extract them from it by building a container around them within which we have control. Container around it. Okay, you're going to need to do this, you have to do this, you got to get straight A's, you're going to have to go to college, yeah. It's no wonder why they're inside there bouncing around, anxious as all. Yeah. If we fear that our children will get hurt, we will use external influences or control to shape them. While stripping them of their internal power. This is a tough one. You don't want your kids hurt, right? Or do you? Anyone? Who wants to see their kid fall from 40 feet off a tree? Yeah. I'll put my hand back down. Okay. I am okay with that. Yeah. My child one time got stung by a wasp. A wasp bed was under the slide in our backyard. The very next day she went back to the slide. I'm just sitting there and I watched. It's going to happen again. I don't know, maybe. She gets stung again. It was awesome. That's bordering sadistic on my part. Okay, so no, conscious parent, I want her to experience that. Because I want to see how she will overcome this. I want to see how she will deal with this, cope with this. She comes back in the second time and says, hey, Dad, I'm going to play in the inside. Oh, there we go. I didn't have to say anything. Okay. Children as is are brilliant in their own right. As is becomes are you. So that's what we have to becoming. As is means let them be. They are who they are. You don't want them to become like you. Unless legacy is important to you, right? And I think to a degree it is important to us. We want to pass that down, whatever that is. That legacy, tradition, yes. So to some degree, regardless how conscious I am, she will be like me, my daughter, right? But certainly when you have the opportunity, allow her to be or allow him to be. Leave your kids be. Let them do whatever they want. Just listening very carefully. Dad, did you hear him? I get to do whatever I want. Instead of discipline, kids can discipline themselves too. They know how. Instead of discipline, use compassion, understanding, and listening. I guess for some parents, discipline is necessary because they feel that children can learn. I prefer just to listen and show compassion. They can learn through those means as well. And it's less, there's less tension. Parenting is a relationship that involves co-regulation. Have you heard of that before, co-regulation? It's where you're interacting with each other and you're reading each other as you go along, reading the nuances. This is between you and your child. And as you're sharing and caring, and you're both going back and forth, mindful, Bell. You're teaching them to regulate, and they're teaching you to regulate, so it's co-regulation. A lot of relationships, whether it's child and parents or adult, there may be one person dominating that situation. So be mindful of that. As much as we want to create an environment for our kids to be equal in that way, in terms of being fair, allowing them the opportunity to speak and to listen to them, they will respect you terrifically. Yes? Yes. You know why kids aren't here? Because they already know this. Kids already know this. What is my child perceiving? Ooh, this is like my mantra in my head. What is my child perceiving? I will ask in this moment. What is my child understanding, or what is my child thinking, or what is my child feeling, or what is my child experiencing? So you can pick any one of those as a mantra. And just inquire. You don't need to provide an answer. It just helps you keep your mind open. I test for that in people. Openness trait. Openness trait allows you to evolve. It's one of those traits that helps you just expand. You're giving yourself permission to learn new things. So inquire. Adversity intelligence. Look at this. Let them play. If anything, if any form of intelligence, and there are many levels of intelligence Wildflower offers, adversity is one of them. I love coming here, and I'm coming here again next Thursday to spend time all day with these kids. And I would like to watch, especially when I see kids tripping over something, or hitting their head against that table, or falling off a seat. I'm like, yeah, cool, cool. Let's see what happens next. What do? Boom, beep, they bounce right back. Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. I just watch and observe. Parent-child bonding, I had to add that in there. That's significant. How you interact and relate to your child allows your child to develop adversity, right? Well, you do so by demonstrating that, yeah. Step back and wander along. You know, I pick up Jasmine today. She's walking out to the car. We go home and she's stepping on the snow. It's freaking minus 30 degrees out there, right? And she's stepping on the snow. What do? I play along. Heck yeah. I was reminded to stay present to what is. Yeah. And look at that. Let them play. Play. It's a wonderful thing. That's where they start learning in the laws and the rules of engagement, like sharing and caring. It is through play they get better at communication, interaction, co-regulation, and so on and so on. So it is that through play. So let them play. Play all day if you can. Please let them play, especially with other kids. They will refine and define their identity through play. Okay, let them teach you to see the silver lining, right? And they'll point things out. They'll say things like, "It's okay, Daddy." Jasmine said one day, "It's okay, Daddy, that you're not a mindful daddy today." You know, because my tone, I asked her to clean her room. That's when she was 4. "Clean your room, please." She came up to me, "That's okay, that you're not a mindful daddy today." With little hands. Let them teach you. Give suggestions. Oh, they're teaching you all the time, by the way. You just have to be open. There's that open trait again, to be able to notice. That's even when a kid asks me a question, I have to know what this person knows, this kid knows, right? "Do you believe in God, Dr. Tran?" "Do you? I need to know what you know." Give suggestions, not solutions, okay? They'll find the solutions. And if they don't, then give them suggestions. Give them options. You can do that. That's okay too. Appreciate them when they solve problems. Okay? And then I'll end it with let them play. Let them play, let them play, let them play. You know what? Get rid of all the mantras that I tell you to. Put that one forefront of your consciousness, back of your mind. Let them play. Perceptual intelligence, build a foundation for higher level cognition. Perceptual intelligence, the capacity to see past judgment. People sometimes mistaken judging for thinking. Yeah? How many times have you heard today people complain about the weather? Oh, nobody? Oh, wow. Sheridan is a place full of enlightened people.
We work with the kids, so you don't hear very often.
I feel like a lot of people here do like the weather. Last year when it had that big snowstorm, I was driving to work and I saw like 4 people out shoveling and they were all like, I was like, yeah, I like living here.
Those folks were very enlightened.
Yes.
You know, I'm a therapist, so that's kind of what the gig is, right? They bring the negativity in. That's
Judging.
okay.
If you examine your thoughts, just take note of it. Just for one day. Look very carefully as you examine and see how many of those thoughts are in the form of a judgment, criticism, sarcasm, right? About 70%, 80% of that. It's just ineffective. It's not useful for you. Maybe it is useful for you because for some reason you like drama. And I guess that's okay too. But just be mindful of that. Judging. Thinking productive. thinking, productive perceptual intelligence. And foster that in kids when your child is saying, oh, I was at Woodland Park and then this mom and child was coming out. And the mom said, oh, put on your coat, it's yucky. And the child, probably a kindergarten, just small, I think 5, 6 years old. Oh, yucky, mommy. So that's a judgment. You have a child that you're taking care of. He or she is already magnificent. They are already thinking because that's an aspect of exploration. So they're already thinking. We don't want to replace that with our own judgments, right? You see, which is what we do sometimes. Jasmine invites Harlow over a lot of time, and I drop Harlow off at 7:30 in the evening, right? From 4 to 7:30. I have all these judgments. Like, ooh, it's cold. But I go along, right? Because I want to foster that experience between the two of them. Because I know that in the context of their play, they're evolving far past me, for sure. Attention. Do you see that? Can you read that? Attention. To defend, what does it say? To defend against what you fear your child will become. Foster kindness, attention with intention, love with presence. Ah, I remember this. You all want your kids to display or be compassionate, right? That's an important trait. Not really. No, I want to bully. Right? How many parents actually have that on the list of needs for their kids, right? So what you do, what I'm trying to say is you can, it's reflected through your actions and behaviors. So listening is an act of compassion. So as you're listening, this is what you're offering. So attention with intention, with the intention just to listen, purely listening, compassionate listening. That's the intention, without the obligation to, or feel that you need the obligation to say anything wise or smart. Just pay attention with intention, and love with presence. When my daughter comes and hugs me, I hold on to her and I'm breathing in, I'm taking in this moment. And then when she's ready to go, I give myself permission to let her go. I don't want to, but I give myself permission to let her go, right? So I'm in the moment. So that may be your homework for this next week. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. The next time you hug your kids or your spouse or yourself, hug with intention. Breathe in and recognize the moment. Be there, be present with that child or your spouse or whoever, a stranger. Just be present. Just stay in that moment. You don't need to, I'm good. Yeah, just stay in the moment when your child's ready, he or she is ready, and they'll let you know. They've had enough of you, and they'll leave and then go, and then you let them go. So when the stream of consciousness flows, wisdom is sure to float. You become that. You become the consciousness that you wish so much and desire for your child. Yeah? And your presence alone and what that reflects on so many levels, deep connection, that is the wisdom, that is all that is needed to instill in your child. That is to be present that way and to offer that gift of love. And when they grow up, that is what they will hold on to. That's what kids tell me when I ask them, what's something good about your mom or your dad? They love me. They love me. And they give me Pokemon cards. That's okay. Attend with a kind of presence that the child feels they are the universe. Referred to, or at least I refer to as cosmic humility. So cosmic humility is a concept. I've talked about humility. If anything that you can instill for yourself as a parent, humility would be one. Gratitude, yes, compassion as well. Humility would be one of those three traits. Humility is a wonderful thing, I think, because like openness, it allows for this progression or evolution of the humanity that exists within you. Now think about Gandhi, right? I consider him, in terms of actualization of human potential, he's probably there, right? Or Jesus, Siddhartha, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa. And we show that too sometimes, right? We don't have to be like that. I just throw those names out because we all know them. But I know people in here even, the things they offer for their kids, our kids, the space for love, compassion. The child's moment to moment can be infused with wonder and curiosity. So follow your kids. Even when you take them home, let them lead you to your car and just watch what happens as their wonderment just expands. This is where the mind is. It's vast. It's vast. The depth, they're working on that. But there's some depth in that too. In the recognition, in the state of presence and moment, what they see that we are unable to see sometimes, we can follow suit. So the child's moment to moment can be infused with wonder and curiosity. Foster that. Start early to guide and becomes a way of living. If you start really, really early, when your children, if for example, displays of compassion, when start early, they will embody that, personify that. They will not know any different. Okay. More specifically, boundaries. You want your kids to have boundaries, right? Start very early. You can ask for permission to enter their room. You can start that at the age of 2. So start asking them for permission at age 2, and they will know that will be their existence. And it's a great way to honor them as well. So create conditions in the home that exemplifies natural state of mind. So early on, teach them, early on, teach them respect, honor, kindness, and being respectful, honorable, and kind by being that way. So we condition that within ourselves, and then it will spill itself over in our engagement with our kids. This respect and this compassion. So work hard to exemplify those things which we desire in our children. Okay? So your homework for the week, please, when you are, let's say, embracing someone or hugging someone, stay present with that one. Really stay present. And I don't mean, this is what hug is about. No. Present state awareness, posture, repose, you're calm. And then you can say in your mind, and this is a mantra in my mind when I hug kids, your kids come and hug me. I will say in my mind, I hug you as if this will be the last time I will ever hug you, or the first time. So I hug you as if this is the first time I've ever hugged you. You miracle, you, and the last time that I will ever hug you. So that's your homework for the week, and now we'll discuss how you do with that, okay? If you're not a hugger, then
You're missing out on some oxytocin.
Right. Oh,
Yeah, you can
anyway.
Fist pump mindfully. I do that. Some kids come up to me. Owen comes up to me, goes like this, puts that fist in my face. I know what that means. And then he does all this thing. I'm like, I just go along with it. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Final class.
Right.